So as a guy that's on cable television, but you obviously intimately get internet culture, what do you make of television in general right now? Like not only on the sports side. Well, let's talk about the sports side first. Like, you know, there's huge problems at ESPN. I mean, they just fired like 500 people, a ton of on-air people, guys that were legends there for 20, 30 years.
Fired 100 people.
Was it 100 on-air people, right? I think maybe.
Yeah, previously the year before they dumped 300-400 people.
Okay.
But here recently it's been about 100.
But yeah, so they're having major problems
Yes.
and people are cutting the cord and we know all that stuff. You're on Fox Sports. It's a different situation over there. But how does that feel for you to be in a industry that is just going under so much change, and yet at the same time you understand the other culture that's killing it?
I think that, and I've written this in the Wall Street Journal, that ESPN and other media outlets have been so consumed with politics that they forgot how to do business.
I agree.
And they've been so focused on the political construct rather than innovation and how do we keep our business healthy. And I feel horrible for the people that are paying the price for this mistake, because if a business, because ESPN's a business, it's not a political machine. And the first thing a business has to do is take care of its employees and make sure they have a place to work. And they have abandoned that by thinking that progressive ideology is a sound business move. And it's just a political agenda. It's not a business move.
Yeah.
And
if anything, it might be a business move that's the opposite of what their audience wants. So it's a reverse business move, actually.
I think without question, because again, remove politics from it. Sports is a conservative culture. It's a coaches come in from Little League on, any problem we got gets solved in this locker room. No excuses. I don't care what outsiders are doing. The referee makes a bad call. We move on.
Yeah.
We control our destiny.
Yeah. We don't care what color you are, what your sexuality is, any of that. Can you play?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a meritocracy.
Yeah.
And when you start injecting all of these far left progressive conversations onto a group of people, like, oh man, this is inconsistent with what I've been taught in sports. This isn't what I expected. And so whether people like it or not, it's easier, more appropriate, and better business to talk sports from a conservative perspective than it is from a progressive perspective. It's just, that's just factual.
You know, it's so funny to me because when I was in college, I really wanted to be a Sports Center anchor. That's what I wanted to be. And I went to college in the mid-90s when it was, to me, the heyday of Sports Center, when Kilborn was on there, who was the first one to me that made it funny, too, which I thought was awesome. And it was the heyday of Dan Patrick and Olbermann, who have both gone very political in different directions these days. So it's funny for me to be sitting across from someone that's in that world that so acknowledges how haywire it's gotten, because SportsCenter used to be fun and funny, and now when I flick it on, it's always political, and that has nothing to do with why you watch. Sports is the escape, not the vehicle for more of this nonsense.
And again, when people hear this and say, well, Whitlock is, because I am for talking about Colin Kaepernick from a traditional sports perspective. And so Colin Kaepernick kneels down and protests the flag and police brutality. And I'm like, hey man, first of all, this is bad business. If these kids, young people, aren't even taught the business that they've entered into, sports. Let's say you're a football player and you get to actually go study football in college. You would understand, like, no. The reason why you make so much money is because Pete Rozelle and the television networks decided to attach football to patriotism and the military. That's the way the game is sold. John Vacenda's voice, all the highlights have been packaged up, all the respect for the military and the flag. They wanted sports fans to feel like the most American thing you can do besides joining the military is sit on your ass and watch football. That's America. That's why Colin Kaepernick made $14 million, because they were selling that. And He just did some bad business. It's like, whoa, I'm making money because the people here believe they're supporting America and they love it and it's patriotism, and I'm going to choose this place to kneel down and protest America and its brutality. It's wrong. And go to the police headquarters and do that. I'm not against them protesting.
Yeah.
Do it at police headquarters. When you do it on a football field where all the television networks and the NFL are all in on, we're selling patriotism here, it's bad business. It's stupid.
So you're dealing with it just at a purely realist level. I saw a former, somewhat colleague of mine did a video kind of bashing you about this, and it's like you're just dealing with reality. The reality that if people stop buying tickets, if people stop buying jerseys, all of these things, well, eventually you might get cut. You might not get the contract, and not everything takes place in between those lines.
Look, man, football is a TV show, and so if James Gandolfini in The Sopranos decided, I'm going to go off script. I'm going to become a religious figure on this show. I'm not going to be a mafia kingpin. They would have fired him and got someone else.
Right.
Because it's a TV show.
Yeah.
This is the role we want you to play in the NFL. This is how we make money. This is how we do our TV show. He's not playing his role. And all the lunatic people that, oh my God, what he did was so courageous, and this is, none of them are going to put $14 million in Colin Kaepernick's pocket. Not one of them.
Yeah.
And
even the ones that might agree with him politically or agree with what he's fighting for.
Yes. And so now here he is begging for it to get back in the NFL, leaking out, I won't take a knee anymore. He's having to back off of the stance he took. And again, look how preposterous it is. I'm not going to end the protest till things improve for the better. Donald Trump elected president. Well, things have improved. I'm not going to protest anymore.
So it's like sort of the perfect storm, because it's like, you know, it's the idea of fighting against racism, you're fighting against capitalism, you're fighting against the patriarchy, you're fighting against all these sort of ideas that they've put out there.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it makes your victimhood thing go off the chart. So it's a perfect storm.
It is. And again, people think I hate Colin Kaepernick because I've been so critical of him. I'm just disappointed. I understand what he was trying to accomplish. Colin Kaepernick, whether people want to address it or not or deal with it, they think I'm terrible for going here, but it's just factual. He's got an identity issue. He's half black, half white. Both of his parents never knew his dad. His mom gave him up for adoption. He's raised by a suburban white family in Milwaukee. I don't care who you are. That's going to create some, in this America that's so racially divided over social media. That's going to create some identity issues for you. And Colin Kaepernick's reputation before the protest was horrible with his teammates. He was awkward, didn't get along with that many people. And then once he did this thing, now he's one of the blackest guys in the history of America. Everybody across the league loves him. And so he's loving it. I get it. But it's bad business for him. He would have been better off continuing to create wealth through playing in the NFL and using that wealth to affect real change for the people he says he's concerned about.
So maybe opening a school or an after-school program or whatever it is.
A lot of people. Jalen Rose, he's a former athlete, former NBA player. It's got the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy in Detroit. It's tremendous. Again, many of the things LeBron's doing in Akron, tremendous. That's, again, the Muhammad Ali model is done. It's over. It's not the 1960s anymore. There's too much money to be made, and it's not the right role for athletes. They're not political spokesmen. Colin Kaepernick won't even come out and talk anymore because there's not enough substance for him to hold a press conference and say anything. Everything's all controlled, or he's retweeting what people are saying about him and trying to speak for himself that way. He's way out over his skis, man. Just way out over his skis.
It's so interesting because it brings up so many things about speech and capitalism and democracy and the way we deal with race and all that stuff. To circle back a little bit, though, do you remember the moment when you realized that the sports business was being corrupted by this leftist stuff? Because I can think of a couple moments, but I'll give you a chance first before I tell you mine.
Well, a lot of people point to the Caitlyn Jenner thing.
That's what I was going to say.
And
to me, that was the end of it. That was where I saw like the full-on like, because to give her the ESPY, again, I have trans friends. I'm totally, for the trans community, and I want them to be treated equally and with respect and all that stuff. But it became so obviously politicized that what was it? The Athlete of the Year, the Lifetime Achievement Award, or
Courage
whatever.
Award.
Courage Award. It was just like
over a young woman that was dying of cancer to continue to play basketball.
Yeah, it was just like, this is just silly. More than anything else.
That wasn't my moment. Because one, I was, and I don't want to say, because I really have some respect for ESPN and the people that run it, but I'll just say it because it's first day. I was inside the belly of the beast, and so I saw it more acutely in terms of what I was dealing with my second go around at ESPN. And what I saw, and again, I'm not demonizing anybody. I see a massive corporation that is backed by Disney, another massive corporation.
Right.
And massive corporations in this era are a lot like Congress. They're a lot like Washington. It's a lot like having something in DC politics. There are so many special interest groups within a massive corporation. ESPN has something called Pulse, People United to Serve and Lead and Excel. It's their Black employees group. They got something called Pride, People Respectful of Individual Diversity, Excellence, or so. It's their gay special interest group. They have a couple other special interest groups. And again, when you have special interest groups, it makes decisions very compromised. ESPN isn't a startup business that gets to ignore virtually every rule and just do what's right and will deal. ESPN is an environment, and most major corporations are. Human resource departments are all powerful. If you've gathered up some special interest groups, they have a lot of powerful, and it's hard to make the absolute best decision in that environment. And so I saw that firsthand, how the special interests in the human resources department had so much influence over what took place that it's like, oh, this organization's handcuffed. It can't just do the right thing for its customer base. They've got all these agendas at work that put any leader in a tough spot.
Yeah, and ironically, it's those agendas, as we've been talking about, that have sort of led to the destruction of the actual business, which is a crazy position. So you're at Fox now, and I talk about the mainstream media all the time and all that, and I think there's an idea out there that somehow when you work at a big corporation that they're telling you everything to say and all that. Now, I don't suspect they're telling you what to say at all, but do you find for yourself, just to protect, as you've talked about, your own rational self-interest as a businessman and someone that's putting your stuff out there, do you and Colin ever sit down and before you do a show and say, well, maybe we shouldn't hit this in this way, or maybe I'm going to go further than you want to go this way, or any of that kind of stuff?
We have a lot of discussions. Colin and I, look, race is an area I've been operating in as a media person for my entire career. It's what I'm passionate about. I have a lot more time to think about these issues than most people. It's my area of expertise. It's not Colin's area of expertise. And so we do talk about that beforehand and, had long discussions about, hey, Colin, I'm going to make sure I don't put you in a bad place or some dangerous place that gets you involved in some kind of faux outrage situation or whatever. But we pretty much talk about what we want to talk about. And Colin's pretty fearless. And so it's funny, though, I hear all the time from people, oh, you're just saying what Fox wants you to say.
Right. And that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. And I'm just like, hey, man, I don't think y'all understand the current media culture and the pressures on executives and people running networks now. if I'm an executive, I'll speak hypothetically. I want to stay in very safe places. And so if I feel any pressure, that would be the pressure. I'm getting zero pressure to be an outspoken person who goes against the grain, against what Twitter thinks is popular about race. No one is if anything, I get the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Preach to the choir.
But isn't that so they're these very strong competing forces then? Because if you want, not if you just want the clicks, but if the clicks just exist, you say what you think, right?
Yeah.
Now the clicks exist because you're saying stuff that's outside of the mainstream. Now you've got maybe executives that just want to keep everything under control, but at the same time they love that conversation. Like they hate it in a way because they don't want the heat to come onto them or cause any problems for them. But so the heat works both ways here.
I would say, David, though, if you look at where the clicks aren't in my perspective. If you go the way, again, you got to remember, Silicon Valley and San Francisco are controlling the clicks and who gets clicks. The clicks are in the far left perspective. If you really study let's go back 2 years before Fox News got involved in all the controversy or whatever. Based on Twitter and social media, you would think that Chris Hayes had a 10 times bigger audience than Bill O'Reilly.
Right.
Based on social media. And so the clicks are in, saying that the police are out here randomly killing black people and America is completely rigged against the black man, you have no chance. That's where all the clicks are.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mention that because I think it's so interesting now that Fox News is struggling, that there's such a feeding frenzy around it. Fox was crushing everybody, but you're right. If you were to just look at retweets, obviously Chris Hayes is doing a lot better than Bill O'Reilly. His account was more of like just a corporate controlled account. So you'd think that their ratings would have been much better, but now there's such a feeding frenzy because they see there's blood in the water around Fox, and people
the feeding
love that.
frenzy's around Trump.
Yeah.
Anybody can get ratings talking about Trump.
Yeah.
But I've often said, and I stand by this, if you build any type of media content based around pleasing Twitter, you're building something that's going to fail. That you're going to get all kinds of clicks but real people just aren't paying attention to that. I started saying this when the Sharknado TV show or movie
when that thing
came out,
blew up on
and
Twitter.
all over Twitter, and then the ratings came out and no one watched. And I don't want to say this to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to start anything, but someone will see this and they'll think I'm just picking on them. But I wrote a piece after Melissa Harris Perry's show on MSNBC got canceled, and I was just like, the show was completely built for social media, and it never rated. No one ever watched, and it's a mistake. And again, we all are media so obsessed with social media, and we think that's reality. And I just keep trying to preach to people, no, man, it's not remotely reality. It's not what America thinks. If you followed social media, you thought Trump was going to lose the election. If you believed in what you were seeing from social media, and it's just a false indicator.
Yeah. All right. So one more for you that I think will sort of tie this all together. At the top of the show, I mentioned, and I talk about free speech a lot.
Yep. And
just in the last week alone, there was the Kathy Griffin thing. There was the Bill Maher thing. I don't know if you're following this story about Brett Weinstein, the professor up at Evergreen State, who got in a lot of trouble over not being racist. So of course they're calling him racist. Point being, there's a lot of stuff around free speech. Then you got into hot water about LeBron and the gate and all that. What do you think of just sort of the general state of free speech? Because I've tried to explain to people these aren't First Amendment issues. None of these things have anything to do with the government. But the chill factor that you started talking about way back when, that this is real and not everybody is as brave as you, where you brush this stuff off. But to the average person, how serious do you think this is?
I think it's very serious. I think that I think it's, as a media person, I think it's the biggest issue going. Again, there are clearly bigger issues. There's the climate. There's all kinds of issues going on. But for me as a media person, the silencing of original thought, the silencing of debate, the fact that people that disagree can't seem to find a way to disagree respectfully and exchange ideas, that if you disagree with someone, they're evil and they must be destroyed, that's really troubling to me. We're creating a society that will go to a really dangerous place. And again, we keep calling Trump the fascist, and I don't see the evidence of that. I see those of us in the media, we're the fascists. We're the ones trying to silence people and trying to create the belief that someone we disagree with is better off dead than allowing them a platform.
Yeah. Well, I love finding allies in this space, and it's very obvious to me that you're one, and we need more. I mean, that's what I tell my audience all the time. I'm just some guy that created a YouTube channel. You're some guy that was passionate about sports and started writing about it, and now people care, and that's what we need more of, because we're just two guys saying what we think, you know?
I need to, what I felt and why I was attracted to your work and what you're doing is like, I got to support people that are real. And regardless of color, regardless of religion, regardless of sexual orientation, if you're real, I just got to support you because it's just critically important. Because the other side has all gathered up, because I believe a lot of things are orchestrated. I get, you've even missed we didn't talk about, I got attacked because I defended someone that got in an argument with LeVar Ball, the Lonzo Ball's dad. And Charlemagne the God, who hosts a popular urban hip hop show in New York, made some Emmett Till analogy to Christine Leahy, who I work with, that somehow she's doing. And then LeBron James comes back 2 weeks later or 10 days later talking about Emmett Till. And to me, I don't have any proof of it, but I'm just like, this feels orchestrated. Who Christine Leahy has a dispute with LeVar Ball, and somehow it has something to do with Emmett Till, and LeBron's gate gets vandalized, and somehow it's Emmett Till. And so these talking points are being passed around, and it's orchestrated to me.
I do agree, and I always quote Carl Sagan, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So it's like you don't have absolute evidence of that, but it's sort of like the fake news meme. The day after the election, everybody started talking about, all the mainstream was saying everything is fake news because they sort of lost control of the narrative.
Yeah.
So I have no evidence that there was a newsletter going around to the heads of CNN and MSNBC. But if you're a thinking person, you at least have to explore that situation to figure out what we're up against.
I don't think there's any question that there's an orchestrated movement. Look, I felt like what Deadspin from the Gawker Network, they bullied the hell out of ESPN for years. And I think smart people was like, oh, man, the worldwide leader in sports culture's conservative. Well, let's go take on the head of the snake, ESPN, and push them our direction. And it worked. It worked. I believe Deadspin bullied ESPN into becoming progressive.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's an accident because, once their job was done, they started writing celebratory pieces about how great ESPN is.
Yeah. I suspect we're going to do this again.
I hope.
I think so. For more on Jason, you can watch him on Speak for Yourself on Fox Sports 1 and send all your hate tweets directly to him. It's at Whitlock Jason, not at Jason Whitlock, at Whitlock Jason.